even though for some reason Aaron Torres doesn't exist on my Skype right now.
Maybe you got catfished and it's never really been Aaron Torres.
What if he's not even a real human being?
Let's hope he's not.
Oh, never mind. He's online right now.
Can we discuss the fact that he might not be real with him?
How's it going today, guys?
We're doing good. By the way, this is Hobbs. Hobbs, say hello.
What's going on, Aaron?
What's up, Hobbs? How you doing, brother?
Doing all right. Thanks for coming on.
And then we've got Nick and Potter both on Nick's Skype right now.
How you doing, Aaron?
How's it going, Aaron?
What is one of you guys sitting on each other's lap, or what's the deal?
We got the laptop in between us.
All right, very
This
good.
is
Well,
the way we do it, man. We got a picture of two of us really young holding hands, and then the other two are currently sitting on each other's laps.
Yeah, that's
Hey.
how we go.
YOLO, man. Whatever, dude. It's 2013. I know. Sorry, guys. We've gone completely off the rails. I apologize.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm like Russ Smith right now. I'm completely out of control.
Hello and welcome to the 4FanSports podcast. I'm Josh Wilson, and I am joined by the founders of 4FanSports, Tyler Hobbs.
What's going on? Excited?
Nick Rapier.
Hope everyone had a great weekend.
And, of course, Ryan Potter.
What's going on, ladies and gents?
Now, this is a very special podcast for us here at 4FanSports. We do have a very special guest with us from AaronTorresSports.com and Crystal Ball Run, Mr. Aaron Torres. Aaron, thanks for coming out. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys inviting me.
So, for those of you who don't know, Aaron does run his own sports website, AaronTorresSports.com, and also is one of the managing editors at Crystal Ball Run, right?
Yeah, that is correct. I do mostly long form stuff and a podcast similar to what you guys do at my website, AaronTorres-sports.com. And CrystalBallRun.com is a national college football website that I kind of manage, but I have 4, 5, 6 really good writers working with me. And we just kind of cover whatever's coming up in the sport right now, which thankfully after about 6 months shouldn't be much for the next couple weeks. Hopefully there's no coaches, riding their motorcycles off the road or anything like that. And if that doesn't happen, then we should have a couple slow months. But so those are the two outlets where you'll find most of my work anyways.
And then, of course, Aaron also wrote a book about the UConn national championship team and just released an ebook about 2012.
I'm a UConn alum for those people who probably don't know much about me. I wrote a book called The Unlikeliest Champion, which is available on Amazon. It was about the 2011 title team with Kemba Walker that beat Kentucky in the Final Four, I might add. And, hey, listen, you guys exacted revenge last year, and we all know that semifinal game could have gone the other way as well. So you guys got number 8 in 2012, and you're going to get number 9 sooner or later. So I don't think there's much to worry about. But yeah, so that was the book, and then I also did an ebook this year, which was fun, just kind of a compilation of some of my best work from the 2012 calendar year, and it was a fun year in sports for sure, and it was fun kind of working on that project over the last couple of months and kind of reviewing everything that really happened over the last year. Because, like I said, it was just a really, really fun year in sports.
All right, so that is who Aaron Torres is for everybody who doesn't know. Don't worry, there's only like 2 fans of our whole podcast. So
very well. Now they know.
Now they know. Thanks, Dad. Now you know, Dad.
Hey, Dad. Thanks for listening, Dad.
So. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. We just had the National Signing Day for football recently, and there was a couple of surprises. I recently wrote an article about how there wasn't a lot of surprises with the SEC showing up strong again with Alabama. But you, Aaron, actually just wrote an article about Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss. I kind of look at it this way. If your older brother plays for a school, then the younger brother, you got a pretty good in there, but you've done a lot of work with Ole Miss lately. Like, what do you see out of them so far?
Yeah, I mean, you just brought up the best point right there. Everyone kind of this is kind of the world we live in, and you guys experienced it when Coach Cal got to Kentucky, and all of a sudden John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins showed up, and something's got to be going on. It's like, no, some guys just work harder than others, and sometimes guys have a natural tie-in, and you kind of mentioned the number one player in the country is a kid by the name of Robert Kimdiche, who is a defensive end from Georgia, and his older brother plays at Ole Miss, and so there was a very natural connection there. And Ole Miss had a great signing day. They signed 4, 5, 6 guys on signing day. A bunch of them were kind of 5-star guys that everybody wanted, and it took a lot of people by surprise. But as you guys just mentioned, a couple guys that had natural tie-ins. Kimdiche's brother played there. There was a kid by the name of Tony Connor, who's a safety who played high school ball literally a half an hour from Ole Miss and has about half a dozen guys from his high school team that are now on the Ole Miss football roster. So a lot of natural tie-ins. Ole Miss certainly, won the day, and they were kind of the buzz of that recruiting cycle, is just how they were able to do it coming off a 7-6 year. And I don't think you can underestimate that either. Finishing strong, beating their big rival in a rivalry game to get bowl eligible, winning a bowl. And, I don't think this happens for Ole Miss if they finish this year 3-9 or 4-8. So it was an unbelievable story. It was a story that caught a lot of people who don't follow college football or don't follow recruiting particularly closely. But, certainly kind of a banner day for them, in terms of recruiting and in terms of just getting some positive publicity for the program.
All right.
Served.
Did I talk too much? I'm talking a lot already.
You're good. You're good.
I don't even know how to pronounce that guy's last name.
I didn't learn until literally 3 days ago, and I've been writing about him since last probably May when everyone said he was going to be the number one player in the country, and I definitely did not know until about 2 or 3 days ago, and I'm pretty sure that I still say it wrong. And then of course the fun part is that as hard as it is to say, it's twice as hard to spell. So yeah, but fun day for Ole Miss, and they're going to be a really interesting team going forward, kind of just how they shake out and how they match up with the rest of the SEC.
Well, it's going to be interesting either way because, just Alabama, of course, is Alabama, and they just got better. And then you've got Ole Miss out of nowhere. You've got Texas A&M, who's returning a Heisman winner for the next 2 years. And then, you've got Florida, who came in with like the number 2 class, I think, number 2, number 3, something like that. And then you even have, where we sort of are, LSU, who's got a top 10. And you've got Vanderbilt, who's on the rise. And then you have, even the lower schools like our Kentucky Wildcats, who actually had a pretty solid day on signing day this year.
Yeah, they did. And I would ask you guys, I don't know who wants to go first, but I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how exciting has Mark Stoops made Kentucky football? Because I know that they went to some bowl games in recent years when Rich Brooks was there, but I can't remember the fan base itself being more excited than Kentucky football. I mean, is that safe to say, as kind of young guys that follow the sport, like this is the most excited fans have been for the football program in a while?
I've lived for a decade now, and I can't ever remember people talking about UK football during basketball season. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And, it's crazy because when the college football website I mentioned, crystalballrun.com, is we did, when all the coaching hires were made, we did kind of some evaluations, pieces on all the different coaches that were hired. And I just ended up having to take Mark Stoops. And I kind of was like, okay, it's a decent hire, whatever. And I was really kind of worried. I was like, this guy came from Florida State where they were recruiting all these 5-star guys. And, I didn't really think he was going to recruit like this, and what really impressed me about Mark Stoops, and I think you guys can agree with this, and I've had other Kentucky fans tell me this, is that, he came in really with a really sound game plan, whereas, a lot of coaches kind of just come in and kind of give the line, we're going to recruit the best players in the country and blah, blah, and this, that. Stoops was really smart about how he kind of went about this class. He signed a bunch of junior college kids. One of the things I noticed when I was writing that evaluation was that he actually hired a defensive line coach straight from one of the junior colleges in Mississippi, and that right there was like big red flag to me. Like, okay, he is now targeting junior college kids to come in and contribute right away. And then just the kids that he got out of Ohio, I think is a testament to, the fact that his whole family's from there and that his dad still coaches out there. And then to obviously be able to get the number one player in Kentucky, Jason Hatcher, is unbelievable. So kind of to your guys' point, I don't ever remember people talking about Kentucky football quite like this. And yes, they had some good years on the field, but just the buzz that they created in this recruiting cycle, as you guys mentioned, to kind of put themselves right up in the top there with a number of the other top SEC programs is really impressive.
Is this the new normal for UK? Are they going to be recruiting like this all the time, or is this just kind of like a after effect of hiring coaches that were already recruiting some of the big time guys?
Hey, that's a very good question. To me, I think what we saw in this recruiting cycle is that so much of recruiting now isn't what happened 5 years ago. It's not what happened last year. It's what happened this past season. And, we saw it with USC. USC was the number one team in the country coming into the year. They won 10 games in 2011. And over the course of the summer, they had undoubtedly the number one recruiting class in the country. And then they had some struggles on the field. Some coaches left. Some other coaches got fired. And all of a sudden, kids started looking around. So I think for Mark Stoops, I think the step that he needs to do to continue to recruit like this is, one, I think he's got a great staff in place. The guy, DJ Elliott, his defensive coordinator, is supposedly a great recruiter. But I think, there's got to be some positive something on the field. And look, is Kentucky going to win 9 games next year? No, of course not. And recruits understand that, kids understand that. But it's to kind of, there's a lot of, like I said, positive energy, positive buzz around the program right now. And I think what it comes down to is just continuing that positive buzz, maybe not beating the Floridas and the Georgias, but playing them close, playing them tough. Putting a good product on the field and a product that, fans are excited about, because the one thing that you guys know as Kentucky fans is, like, not only was the team bad last year, but they weren't even fun to watch. I mean, there are teams that lose games. Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. And there are teams that are fun to watch that just don't win a lot of games. But Kentucky, the fans weren't into it, the players weren't into it, and so I think for Stoops, it's just about just even if you don't win 9 games, you don't have to win 9 games. Try to get to 6 wins and get to a bowl game. If you don't win 6, just play Florida tough, play Georgia tough, and then sell the kids next year on, hey, you're going to be the class that puts us over the top, a lot like what James Franklin has actually done at Vanderbilt that you guys mentioned before. There's no reason Mark Stoops can't do that, but kind of as I said, it really does start, with his ability to win a few games and play people tough on the field.
And kind of going off what you said about how Mark Stoops was a great hire, I was kind of skeptical about it because I was following it really close, and I was worried about what he was going to do. And then the thing that sold me on him was hiring Neil Brown.
Yep.
And all these recruits, like Jason Hatcher, like you said, even though he's defensive, he even mentioned having a high tier offense, so to speak, is important for him as a defensive player. And then Ryan Timmons and JoJo Kemp, those are probably the 3 recruits I'm most excited about, all directly mentioning Neil Brown even before Mark Stoops being in their recruiting process. So,
and can I add something to that as well, if you don't mind me cutting you off?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Is what I think when I saw that hire, that was another one where I was like, Mark Stoops has a game plan, and what I like about that hire is this, right? So to me, and I've said this, and some people agree and some people don't, is I think that there is a top tier of SEC football jobs right now. It is Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and LSU, and then everybody else kind of falls in somewhere behind that. And that's no disrespect to Auburn fans or Tennessee fans or Kentucky fans or whatever, but those are the schools that can go out and just recruit the guys they want, play the type of game that they want, win games 17-6, play great defense, run the ball, do the stuff that the really elite programs do. If you look at all of the programs beyond those 4, most teams that win in the SEC do it on the offensive side of the ball. And what I always say about everybody else is you can't out Alabama. If you think you're just going to go and recruit these big offensive linemen and these powerful running backs and beat Alabama 20-6, that's just not going to happen. And that was another concern that I had with Mark Stoops is he's not an offensive guy. He's a defensive guy. He came from a program at Florida State where the emphasis was on defense and winning low-scoring games, and they opened up the offense a little bit the last few years. But, my concern was, is he going to try and out Alabama? Like, is he going to try to play this defense and running game system, because it's just not going to work at Kentucky. And like I said, if you look at the programs that have had success outside of the 4 schools that I mentioned, Texas A&M this year, how did they beat everybody? By scoring a ton of points. When Auburn won the national championship, yeah, they had Nick Fairley on defense, but it was Cam Newton on offense. Arkansas, when they were successful under, the beloved Bobby Petrino, I know everybody in Kentucky loves that guy, or Kentucky fans anyways love that guy, but how do they beat people? By scoring points. And I think that Mark Stoops the defense is going to be improved, but you've got to have, you have to be aggressive, offensively to win games in this conference if you're not one of those schools, because like I said, those 4 schools in general just recruit at a different level than everybody else. Auburn and Tennessee, they get their players, but they don't get them in the volume that those other schools do, and you've got to be able to score points and open up the offense. That's what A&M did this year. That's what Arkansas did under Petrino, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I really like that Neil Brown hire is that Mark Stoops wasn't coming in and saying, we're going to try to win games, 17-7. We're going to have to open it up to win games, because just there are too many good teams in this conference, and we're not going to be able to win games on our defense alone.
Yeah, and that reminded me also, like, kind of how so eloquently you put it, out Alabama. He came with a game plan to Mitch Barnhart, our athletic director, and said, we are going to have to do something different, because it's not going to work. We're not going to be Alabama. No recruit is going to look at a scholarship offer from Alabama and from Kentucky and pick Kentucky. It's just not going to work. You just have to do something different, and that's why I love the Neil Brown hire.
On the reverse of that, where you have Kentucky and Vanderbilt, on the up, and anybody can take this, of course, and Aaron, you can lead us off here. What do you think's going on with Tennessee? Do you think they're ever going to be, Tennessee again? Like, you have a coaching search and nobody wants to come coach, and you have a signing day and you don't make a whole lot of noise. I mean, they had a top 25 class, but it was probably one of the quietest top 25 classes I'd seen out of the SEC. Kentucky was making more noise and not having a top 25 class than Tennessee was with the top 25 class.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys, and I actually said this in a radio interview a few weeks ago, and I got kind of, not ripped for it, but I said, I don't know if Tennessee is ever going to win at the level that they once did, because Tennessee, like Kentucky, just doesn't have a lot of in-state talent. Georgia, Alabama, LSU, they can fill 75% of their class with just kids from in-state and compete at an insanely high level. Kentucky can't do that, and Tennessee can't do that. And again, I hate to keep bringing it back, but to me, it comes back to having a game plan. And I think Mark Stoops had one. And from the people that I've talked to at Tennessee, I'm not totally sure that Butch Jones did. I really think Butch Jones thought, oh, this is Tennessee. Oh, we play in a 100,000-seat football stadium, and we're going to get these recruits. And it's like, yeah, dude, guess what? You know who else plays in a 100,000-seat stadium? Everyone in this conference. You know who else has great facilities? Everyone in this conference. You know who else? You're competing against Steve Spurrier, who's won a national championship. Nick Saban's won 3. Will Muschamp's on the way up. Mark Richt has won SEC championships. And I don't think Butch Jones had a game plan other than to say, we're going to go out and try to sign the best players. Well, you know who else is trying to sign the best players? Everybody in that conference. And right now, everybody in that conference has a lot more to offer. I didn't like the Butch Jones hire when it happened. I haven't seen anything from him that made me change my mind in the past 5 or 6 weeks. And I'll tell you another thing. I got a lot of people riled up, I should say, on Twitter. And I said I can see a scenario where in 2 or 3 years, the Kentucky and Tennessee programs are like two ships kind of passing in the night. I can see a scenario where Kentucky eclipses Tennessee as a football program. And that's not to say that that's going to be for the next 50 years, or that if the right guy comes in, Tennessee can't compete again, because in college football, you're only one good coaching hire away from being relevant, as we've kind of learned with Notre Dame and with Texas A&M and whatever. But I don't like the Butch Jones hire. I don't think he has a plan, and they don't have very much talent coming back next year, and I think it's going to be a tough gig. And I kind of like the trajectory, especially relative to the fan base's expectations, much more of Kentucky right now than I actually do at Tennessee.
and they were begging people to be their coach.
Well, that too, and that it goes back to not having a game plan.
Right.
Is you know the AD, it's great that you want John Gruden. This is something that happens all the time, and what I can relate it to is this was a big point of contention at my alma mater, the University of Connecticut. Obviously, as we all know, Jim Calhoun retired this offseason, and the fan base was really divided before he announced his retirement of, do you go out and do a national search, or do you kind of stay internal and hire Kevin Ollie, who they obviously ended up hiring, and the circumstances kind of forced the administration's hand. But the reason I bring it up is because if you're UConn, with the state of the Big East and with the fact that you have to follow a Hall of Fame coach and with the fact that there was never a winning tradition before Jim Calhoun, there's a very real possibility that you go out there and you just get your pants pulled down in front of everybody. You know what I mean? And and that's basically what happened in Tennessee. And I don't blame Charlie Strong for not wanting that job, man. I mean, there's no reason to think that Louisville, when they go to the ACC, isn't going to have an easier path to that 14 playoff than Tennessee will, because Louisville's not going to have to play Florida every year. They're not going to have to play Alabama every year. They're not going to have to play Georgia every year. So this is a weird time for Tennessee. It was a weird hiring process. I, as well as many people, I'm not claiming I'm the only one, saw that coming a mile away. They were, the pie in the sky, John Gruden stuff. That's all well and good, but when you get turned down by him, which you're going to get turned down by John Gruden, who's your backup plan? And you better make sure that you don't go to your third, fourth, fifth choice. And that's what I liked about Kentucky, is they kept everything very under wraps. And shoot, was Mark Stoops the first choice? Was he the 10th choice? I don't know, but at least there's nobody out there, reporting it. Maybe Mark Stoops was Kentucky's 10th choice. We don't know that. You know what I mean? And Kentucky and Mitch Barnhart can sell that as, we got the guy that we wanted. Tennessee cannot sell that to their fan base. And what I've said about Butch Jones from day one is, it's never a good thing when half the fan base hates you before you've ever coached a game. And, that's kind of what they're going through right now. And I think it's just going to be a weird couple years for them, to be perfectly honest.
Hobbs, you really sort of liked Ohio State this past season. And we had Ohio State going out there on recruiting day, and basically to quote Aaron, they went out there and said, step your game up to the rest of the Big Ten. Hobbs, what do you think about next season with Ohio State?
I like them. Bringing back Braxton Miller. Urban Meyer's still their coach, last I heard. And that's all I really have to say about that. Ohio State's going to be good. I think last year they were arguably the best contender against Alabama.
Aaron, what do you think about SEC guys going out, leaving the SEC, going into other conferences, and still kind of treating it like it's the SEC?
Oh, I think Urban Meyer at Ohio State's the best thing that's happened to college football maybe ever, man, because he makes it fun. He's competitive. He's a gamer. He's telling the rest of the conference, step your game up. He's going out there and beating everybody's brains in the first year. And, dude, you look at what he just did in recruiting, number 2 class in the country, got a guy out of Tennessee on signing day, got a guy out of Georgia, got guys from Texas, got guys from Florida. Urban Meyer's building a team to win national championships. He ain't trying to win the Big Ten. He doesn't care about the Big Ten. He cares about winning crystal balls. And like I said, he's got a team. If he went 12-0 with somebody else's players and with the team that he had last year, it's terrifying to think what he's going to do when he gets a little bit of talent on that team, especially the skill position guys. We know what Braxton Miller can do. Hobbs, you got some fun times ahead of you, man, because this thing ain't slowing down. As long as Urban Meyer's there, this thing ain't slowing down anytime soon, man. They're going to win 10, 11, 12, 13 games every year going forward. And the rest of the Big Ten better, like I said, step their game up, wake up, because Urban Meyer's not slowing down for anybody, man. If that's a guy that can win 12 games in the SEC, there's no reason he can't do it in the Big Ten as well.
I completely agree. And as much as I love the SEC national championship streak that we have going, I think it's going to continue until Urban Meyer wins. And I don't think it's too distant of a future that it will happen. Because he has everything he wants in Ohio State, so he's not leaving there, obviously.
They might win it all next year. I mean, they were pretty good this past year.
Yeah.
So he got another recruiting class in. They're going to be good. They're going to be real good.
Plus, the thing that they have there, the luxury that they have there, is that they don't have to play in the SEC. So, I mean, they don't have to play Alabama and Texas A&M and all these other stacked SEC teams. They got the Big Ten. So I mean,
that's true. They still have to play Michigan. If you have to
Michigan's
play
not what it was, though, man.
if you have to play at Michigan, that's a tough game. And then you have to go to Wisconsin. That's a tough game. So I mean, there are a couple tough games. Obviously not.
Games, and they're often spread out. It's a lot different when playing Michigan and Wisconsin in the same season. Whenever you have to play Florida one week, then the next week you got Alabama, then the next week you got A&M, then you have a Kentucky, and then you have Tennessee, and then you have so on and so forth, Missouri, whatever you so have you.
I'm not saying it's as tough of a schedule. I'm just saying that they have some tough games in there that they could lose.
It's not a cakewalk by any means, but
nobody is going to have a cakewalk to a national championship. They're not going to be Notre Dame last year. I mean, it's just interesting, that Urban Meyer is basically going to Ohio State and treating it like he's still at Florida and he still has Tim Tebow and he's going out and he's getting great recruits and he's going to dominate that conference. And, it's like they said, like Hobbs said, I don't think it's too far off, before they're in a national, they might be in the national championship next year, playing against probably Alabama. But
is the
either
playoff
way,
next year?
Yeah, the playoffs actually start next year.
Well, they'll be in the playoff, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Nick, you still alive, bro?
Yeah, I got a question for Aaron. He touched on earlier how he really was impressed about Ole Miss's philosophies and the recruiting and how well they've done. Do you have anybody it doesn't have to be an SEC team that went out and really shocked you on signing day? That you think they're on the up and up?
Well, I think Ohio State was so impressive to me. One team that I actually really think was actually really underrated, and I don't know what it's all going to really mean big picture, is actually Auburn. And, look, when you're competing against, what's his face over there, Nick Saban, some guy that just won 2 straight national championships 3 and 4 years, it ain't going to be easy. But what I liked about Gus Malzahn and what he did is that, this is a guy that we all know him as an offensive genius, as a guy who was kind of the brains behind Cam Newton in that national championship team. And, but you look at that class, their 3 best signees or their highest rated signees by Rivals rankings or by Scout or ESPN or whatever, they're all defensive linemen, man. And it's like, dude, that guy may be an offensive genius, but I think he's just playing a genius, period, because he's smart enough to know, like, we'll be able to find guys that can run 4.40s. I'll be able to find a quarterback that can run my offense, but I ain't going to win nothing in this league if I don't get, the defensive linemen and the guys up front to really, take care of that. So to me, that was what was most impressive to me. He went head to head on a couple guys that everybody wanted, 3 defensive linemen that could have gone just about anywhere in college football, and he got a fair share of them. And of course the question with that becomes, will he be able to recruit well enough? And again, like I said before, the volume of athletes to kind of compete with the best teams in this conference, I don't know. But that was one team that stood out to me. Like I said, Ohio State was unbelievable. Kentucky, I don't know how you can't really credit Mark Stoops and his staff for what they did for all the reasons we discussed. I think Oregon had a very good class, given that Chip Kelly left so late. They signed a few guys that people weren't really expecting from him. And, and I think, those are kind of the teams that really stood out to me, and it was an impressive day for a lot of teams. But I think the one team that, because of the conference, because of the state that they're in, that does get overlooked is Auburn. I was pretty impressed with what Gus Malzahn was able to do in his first recruiting cycle at the school.
Kind of going back to what you said about Kentucky, I hate to keep bringing back. I don't want people to think
all
about, but
it's cool, dude. Everybody knows
going
we're a
back
big
to the
bunch
powerhouse of the SEC. As great and excited as the fan base is about this recruiting class, we're still, I think we finished 30th in the country, right? Something like that. Scout or Rivals or something.
We were last I checked, we were at 27, and they're talking about there's a surprise coming possibly that could put us in the 25.
Nice. Still, we finished 13th in the SEC. So, I hate to be the Debbie Downer for our fan base, but it's still tough to compete in the SEC whenever, as good as our recruiting class is, we finished 13th.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's something that everybody's going through, you know. I mean, Brett Bielema at Arkansas, I mean, you know, that's a guy that people were crazy about. His ability to come in and win in the SEC. I wasn't one of those people, by the way. He finished 26. You know, you mentioned Tennessee. I'm looking right now. I'm trying to find them. You know, they were right around number 20. But again, you know, did they sign enough players that can compete at this level? They signed a couple really big name players, but you can't. You know, you're not going to win with one really great wide receiver, one really great offensive tackle. It's the depth and it's the, like I said, the volume of guys. So with Kentucky, I mean, you know, with Kentucky, look, this thing didn't get as bad as it is with one recruiting cycle, and it's not going to get fixed with one recruiting cycle. And it's like I keep saying, just now the recruiting stuff is done. Now you just got to win games on the field. And you know, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what the schedule looks like next year. I don't know.
Language, but it looks.
Who do you guys play? I mean, outside of Louisville, obviously.
Yeah, we got Alabama.
Oh, you play Alabama. Oh, good luck with that.
It's like some type of random thing where through the conference realignment, everyone in the East played somebody random in the West, and we got the lucky draw of Alabama.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah, the whole scheduling thing worked out really weirdly because I know like Ole Miss plays some teams. I was just talking to an Ole Miss fan about this. Why I know is like they play a couple teams, 2 years in a row at home. They play a couple teams 2 years in a row on the road. Like they play Alabama on the road for a second straight year, which is kind of crappy in and of its own right. Oh, I forgot you guys opened with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers the week one.
Yeah, we got that.
Who's coaching them again? I forget. I can't remember.
Bobby Petrino bastard.
He's this guy who rides around on a motorcycle with interns and.
Not anymore, man. He's changed. You didn't hear? He went to therapy for the last year, and all that stuff is behind him, and he's a better person, and he's a better man now, according to him.
Absolutely, he sure is. And his dad. Don't forget his dad.
And I see 8 winnable games, and 3 of them are being pretty generous. So that means like you have to beat Western, you have to beat Miami, you have to beat Louisville, you have to beat Alabama State. Then you throw in maybe South Carolina, maybe Mississippi State, maybe Vandy, maybe Tennessee, and you get 2 slip-ups and all that just to make a bowl. Like next year, I don't want people to turn on Mark Stoops based on next year because
and it's not about winning games. It's about being competitive and putting a good look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a great example. They went 2-10 2 years ago under Hugh Freeze. Brought in under Houston Nutt, I'm sorry. Completely new coaching staff. You know what? They jumped. People forget this about Ole Miss. They were 6-3 at one point, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, where did these guys come from? And they ended up losing a couple games. They lost a really close game to Texas A&M. Actually, people forget they almost beat Texas A&M.
Yeah, they had them on the ropes. Yeah.
They had them on the ropes. They lost to Vandy by 1, and then they went and beat Mississippi State in their bowl game. So is that a team that won 9 games? No, they barely got to 6, but it was the right 6. It was with the right momentum. The thing about Ole Miss, they took care of the teams they were supposed to. Auburn was bad this year. They beat Auburn. Arkansas was bad this year. They beat Arkansas. So for Kentucky, I don't think that there's a magic threshold that's going to get people excited about Mark Stoops. But it's like Ole Miss is a perfect example. They didn't beat Alabama. They played them tough, though. I mean, up until the LSU game, Ole Miss played Alabama tougher than anybody. That includes Tennessee. That includes Michigan. That includes, I'm trying to think of who else they had played to that point. But, so for Kentucky, it's not about winning 9 games and beating Florida at the Swamp or whatever the case is. It's about being competitive and just playing hard. And I think that that's the one thing. And I would defer to you guys, but every time I watch Kentucky, it looked like they almost quit in most of those games.
Yeah.
And so I think that bothers the fan base more than anything. Is look, I'm a fan like everybody else, and if I'm paying my hard-earned money, I know that we're probably not going to beat Alabama, but I don't want to have no hope in the first quarter, or I don't want to have a feeling in the first quarter like my guys don't care. And I think that was the way Kentucky fans were feeling last year. And hopefully Mark Stoops can at least change the attitude and get guys playing hard. And you get guys playing hard, crazy things start to happen, as we saw at Ole Miss and a number of other places this year.
Well, if we lose by less than 30 in every game, I'm storming the field after the Tennessee game at the end of the year. And I'm gonna bear hug Mark Stoops.
I don't want to watch us play Florida and see us lose 63-5 like we did in 2010. That was awful. Or 2009.
Yeah, we the highlight of that moment, we were all at that game, and the highlight of us for that game was when Taylor Wyndham just put Tim Tebow in the hospital. That was our favorite part of the whole game.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
that was mortifying.
I was in front of some Florida fans, so that was good for me.
That was the highlight for us. And Nick said in our end of the year podcast that one of his favorite sports moments of 2012 was watching Vanderbilt beat Kentucky 49-0 at home. So hopefully we won't ever have anything like that happen again. I think part of it is sort of kind of to a lesser degree what happened with Cal after Gillespie left. Like, you get Gillespie, and even if it's not Calipari that's coming in next, whoever comes in right after Gillespie, he kind of gets a free pass for a little while. So I think with Stoops, nothing to Joker. I love Joker. I was one of Joker's biggest supporters. He's a great guy. Love him to death. But you have what happened with Joker, and Mark Stoops comes in, and that's why everybody's excited. I mean, they don't, you got a lot of fan base who haven't ever been this excited for Kentucky football ever, and you've got people who, you look at Rich Brooks, and his first couple of years, there was a website called FireRichBrooks.com before he started, the whole 2007 push with Andre Woodson, Stevie Johnson, and all those guys. For the first time, I think this is going to be right away Kentucky fans are excited about the coach. It's not give it a few years and then we'll be excited. They're all excited now. And I'm hoping that they approach it with some trepidation. Like, they're not.
Ooh. Good
You like that one, right? Yeah.
Just to jump in a second, and we can edit this out, I just wanted everybody to know that Boston College is beating Duke with 4 minutes left in the game.
Yay.
Yeah, they are.
Aaron, do you hate Duke?
I do. I'll tell you guys a true story. Everybody knows that, obviously everyone knows the history between Kentucky and Duke. Well, what people don't know is that Jim Calhoun's first great team at UConn was in 1990. They made the Elite Eight, and they actually lost to Duke on a buzzer beater by Christian Laettner. And it's crazy because I know how people in Kentucky feel about Christian Laettner. Maybe that's changed the last couple of years because I know he's been down there a lot and, playing in charity games and stuff. But there was on Sports Talk Radio in Connecticut, Christian Laettner was actually voted the #1 most hated Connecticut athlete, Connecticut rival athlete over anybody else. So, people think that it's just a Duke Kentucky thing, but it's a Duke UConn thing too. And, oh, by the way, I always like to share this is by the way, for as quote-unquote great as Coach K is, Jim Calhoun coached his pants off the last 2 times that they played each other in the 2004 Final Four and the 99 Final Four. So I do hate Duke, but I am part of one of the few fan bases that can actually say that we probably have gotten the better of Duke the last couple times that we played them. I think those are the last 2 times that they played. I don't know. Well, the last 2 times they played in the tournament anyways. I know they played in the 2000 regular season because I was actually at that game, but UConn went through Duke and Reddick in the Final Four in 2004 with Emeka Okafor, and in '99 they kind of shocked the world when Coach K had, I think a lot of people consider to be one of the best teams ever to win a national championship, ever to play college basketball that didn't win a national championship was that '99 Duke team with Elton Brand and Corey Maggette and all those guys. So
all those cheaters. All those cheaters. Corey Maggette, we don't forget.
Yeah, well, people forget this too. Like Chris Duhan's mom miraculously got this job that she was way underqualified for as soon as her son committed to Duke in the Durham area. She had no ties to Durham, but she just so happened to get a really good job in Durham. So credit to her. I don't know what she did with her resume between when her son signed and when he showed up at Duke, but she must have done something. But no, I mean, it's like we were saying with Ole Miss before. It's like. I'm not accusing anybody of cheating, but everybody bends the rules and all that stuff. And Duke, as morally upright as they like to pretend to be, they're no different than everybody else is, Yeah.
Morally upright when they cheer about somebody's grandma. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Completely irrelevant, but who's your favorite UConn player of all time, Aaron?
Oh, man, that's a good question. So I was at UConn.
Hopefully it's someone I know. Don't throw somebody completely outlandish there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's crazy because So I was there at the same time Rudy Gay was, and I used to see Rudy around all the time, and me and my buddies used to go up to him and joke with him that we need an extra body in intramurals and stuff like that. And he was he was actually a genuinely good kid, really nice guy. You would have never known he was a McDonald's All-American. So I've always had kind of a soft spot for him, but I think as time goes on, it's got to be Kemba, just because people forget that. UConn made the Final Four in 2009, but had a terrible 2010 year, was getting investigated by, in the 2011 season, they're getting, this is what my book is about, is that they're getting investigated by the NCAA. By the way, they whiffed on every recruiting target that they had, guys that Kentucky fans are familiar with, Brandon Knight, Deron Lamb, all these guys they have UConn in their finals or as one of their final schools, and all of a sudden they're going other places because they don't think UConn can win anymore. And so what Kemba did with that team, I think, it was crazy because during that Final Four run, I remember talking to Matt Norlander, who now works at CBS Sports, and he was like, Kemba's going to go down as the most beloved UConn Husky of all time. I, at the time, had never really thought about it. I always assumed it'd be Ray Allen or Emeka Okafor or whatever, and I think he's absolutely right. I just think as time goes on, we don't know what's going to happen with the UConn program, with the Big East, kind of the transition out of the Jim Calhoun era into the Kevin Ollie era. And, I've talked to people all over that program like that might be the last national championship that UConn ever wins in our lifetime. I mean, it really might be, and I'm not like you guys. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just being a realist here. And so, if in 40 years we might look back at that run by Kemba and that team as the last real great moment in UConn basketball history, or maybe the last national championship team ever at the school. So I think he's going to go down as the greatest. Obviously having a personal connection with Rudy Gay. Not that I was boys with him or anything, but like I said, I used to see him around campus all the time. So those two probably stand out, and there there's a number of others too. As you guys know, when you watch a team every year, you always get attached to certain guys, but those are probably the two that stand out to me the most. So.
You talked about the charity events. Rudy Gay actually participated in one of those that Kentucky held. I don't know if you know that.
I think I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in one of the Rivals games, and I actually got to watch. He's incredible. It's amazing. I saw it had the Kentucky All-Stars, and Rondo was the only person on the Kentucky All-Stars that have been in the league for such a long time, and it was amazing. He wasn't even that good at Kentucky, really. And how much his game transcended in the NBA was crazy.
I was going to say, fun fact, Rajon Rondo's last college game was a loss to UConn. Interestingly.
It's on you, Aaron.
2006. Hey, that was the year UConn lost to George Mason in the Elite Eight, so believe me, there was no celebration on my end at all. So, but what's
Speaking
that?
of
Karma.
I guess, yeah.
Speaking of being boys with basketball players, Aaron, just for a little fun fact for you, Tyler Hobbs and Deron Lamb are best friends.
Really?
Not really anymore.
I will say Deron Lamb has one of the most entertaining Twitter accounts that I've ever encountered.
Have you ever trolled through who he follows?
That's what I was going to say. I don't know about his account, but his follow list is definitely it's definitely entertaining, to say the least.
It's like booty model, famous athlete, booty model. It's really funny.
He tweeted at some porn actress last night, and then 30 minutes later he tweeted, "How you delete a tweet?"
He's in the D League right now, right?
Yeah, I think he got sit down. But it happens.
But you guys are right, though. I will tell you right now, Rudy was so fun. I'm trying to find on YouTube. He had a few they have when they used to do Midnight Madness and stuff. I don't know. They still do it. The first night, whatever. His first year at UConn, he had one of the most epic dunks I've ever seen. I think it was off the backboard between the legs, and that was his welcome to UConn moment. And he came onto a team that had just won a national championship, and nobody really knew who he was, and he was this highly rated recruit. But you talk about a guy that was kind of given the entire package of just skills, jumping ability, shooting, athletic ability. Unbelievable athlete. And I know that you guys, you guys all have your favorite Wildcats and all that stuff. I'm just saying, as a UConn fan, oh man, was he fun to watch. And it was unfortunate that really like a lot of guys, his best basketball wasn't even played while he was at UConn. It was actually played when he was in the NBA. But, what are you going to do? But he's an unbelievable athlete, though. And if you guys ever, I don't know if you go to NBA games or whatever, but if you get a chance to see him in person, he really is pretty fantastic, to be honest. So.
Well, that's kind of what happened with Rondo. Like Hobbs said, he wasn't exactly like the greatest player when he came to Kentucky. And I consistently say that Rondo is probably one of the luckiest players in the NBA because he gets drafted to the Celtics, who at the time, the Celtics weren't like, they were, this was before the Big Three. So they weren't that great. They weren't, top of the East or anything like that. And then the next season they bring in the Big Three, and all of a sudden Rondo has these great NBA vets to learn. He has people he can dish it off to, and as he grows as a player, he becomes, probably the top point guard in the NBA now just because of he lucked into the greatest situation.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I think there are just certain guys, the college game, and this has been a conversation that a lot of people have been talking about the last few weeks, and I unfortunately I don't have as much time to watch college basketball because of my college football responsibilities as I used to. But I've heard Jay Billis say this, I've heard Seth Davis say this, is, the game has gotten so physical that it's really hard to really gauge who, not who the best players are, but I think that a lot of the best players, just because the NBA game is more free-flowing, let's be honest, guys don't play defense as hard in the NBA, at least not, game to game, quarter to quarter, minute to minute as they do in college ball, is like, there are certain guys that their game just translates better to the NBA, and I remember with Rudy Gay in specific, a lot of people said the same thing because college is a half-court game, and you're playing against 2-3 zones, and you're doing all kinds of weird stuff. So there are just certain guys that their games just translate better to the NBA, which is weird to think about because it's obviously a higher level of competition, but still. So I don't know. I didn't watch Rondo closely enough at Kentucky to really say how much of it was luck versus skill. I would ask you guys, was he putting up these triple-double, 14 assists, 10-point, I don't remember him. I remember enjoying watching him play, but I don't remember him, putting up the stats like he's putting up now,
Yeah, I don't. I was kind of a toddler, really. And I don't really remember hardly anything. I don't remember.
You were not a toddler. We were in middle school, maybe.
That's a toddler.
Just saying.
In basketball fandom, it might.
An adolescent, man, dickhead.
What I always hear people say about him is that
regardless, I don't remember Rondo being this great. I remember Wayne Turner like it was yesterday, and he was way before Rondo. But I'm obsessed with Wayne Turner.
Super obsessed.
Let me ask you guys, so who do you guys consider to be your favorite players? Because so many great players have come through, and I don't know. I have kind of an opinion on just Kentucky fans in general, and I just think it's been so fascinating because I don't want to say John Wall saved Kentucky basketball, but man, he completely rewrote the entire history of the program, I feel like, where does he stand with you guys in terms of, even though he was only there 1 year, because I feel like, I don't want to say he was more important than some players that were there for 4 years, but you talk about a guy that completely rewrote history,
Yeah, Aaron, I'm glad you said that because I've actually made that argument before. It's crazy to think about what could have been different if Cal didn't get John Wall and have that great first year and really set the tone for his time here. But to go back to you asking us our favorite players, I'm a southpaw, so I've always been a huge fan of Tayshaun Prince when he was doing his thing here at UK, and he had some pretty memorable games. And then I was excited to see him, win some for the Pistons, and he's still in the league now, but not clearly as good as he has always been. But I've always been a great Tayshaun Prince fan.
Wasn't Cliff Hawkins a lefty too?
He was.
Cliff Hawkins was the
Nobody
man.
remember. It was funny. I'll tell you a true story.
Aaron dropping Cliff Hawkins.
I know. Well, I'll tell you why.
Aaron.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, I love college basketball. I don't barely ever write about college basketball anymore, just because I can't really watch the amount of games that I feel like to have an opinion on it. But dude, I grew up in Connecticut, man. College basketball is it. That's what's up. But it was really funny. 3 days ago, I was checking my Twitter or whatever, and I got an email or something that said Cliff Hawkins is now following you on Twitter, and I was like, wait a second, is it that guy that played at Kentucky 8 years ago? And I looked it up, and it wasn't him. But that was what. Hawkins. I was so disappointed. That would have been pretty funny, but it was just
Cliff
some random.
Hawkins was a member of one of the best Kentucky teams of all time. The 03 team that didn't win.
Wayne Wade. Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, till Dwayne Wade was a douche.
I
Keith
cried
Bogans
that year.
shut him down, Aaron. You know it and I know it. Keith Bogans would shut him down.
Was he on that team, Keith Bogans, or no? I don't remember.
Yeah, no, Keith Bogans, because he used to be. He's like my top 5.
Yeah.
Was he?
He was hurt.
He got
hurt
to play.
Wasn't super hurt, but that's our story and we stick to it.
All right,
But
so
he was at 2003 that played Dwayne Wade.
Right.
I'm sorry?
He was on the team that lost to Dwayne Wade, though.
yeah,
Yes.
he was on that team. That was his senior year because Keith Bogans was my favorite, and we lost. And I laid down on the couch and cried my eyes out when we lost in 2003.
Fitch, Keith Bogans, Hoop Squad.
Yep. Potter, you're the least tenured of the UK fans here. Who's your favorite UK fan? UK player of all time?
I don't know, man. I thought it was pretty cool. I was actually at Big Blue Madness with you guys whenever John Wall did the John Wall dance for the first time. And that was kind of like whenever I first started following UK, because I'm not originally from Kentucky, so I didn't really have, I don't remember Wayne Turner and all those guys because I moved here in 2000.
Yeah.
So, I like Brandon Knight a lot. He's probably my favorite.
See, I thought he was unbelievably boring to watch on a game-in, game-out basis. He's a perfect example of a guy that I think is going to be a much better NBA player than he was in college. I just didn't think I thought he was overrated that entire year, and I'm sorry, I don't know if that's gonna somebody's gonna set my house on fire for saying that, but I didn't think because he was a two, I know this because I wrote this in my book, but this was a 2-time National Player of the Year. Brandon Knight was, and I'm not saying he was bad, but you think 2-time National Player of the Year? I don't know. I thought he'd be a little bit better in college than he actually was.
And kind of the thing with the boring, I kind of agree with the overrated slightly, very slightly, but barely. But kind of the boring part is that John Wall was this emotional athlete that he showcases emotion. He'd dunk on some guy's head, and Brandon Knight would just kind of lay it up and just kind of dribble up and down the court, kind of boringly, like you said.
Well,
but
John Wall was you guys' freshman year at UK, and Brandon Knight was my freshman year at UK. So I've always felt more of a connection. I used to see him around campus more than I never saw John Wall. He wasn't here whenever I came.
Right.
True.
Well, and I was going to add too, so I was at that UConn Kentucky game in Madison Square Garden, which was really John Wall's coming out party. Mm-hmm. And, you talk about a guy that on the college level was just a force, was just a whirlwind, was just, he was so much faster. I mean, I always say, and you guys are going to laugh when I say this, but there were only 2 guys that I ever watched Kemba Walker play against that were just as quick, if not quicker, than Kemba. One was John Wall, and the other one was actually Peyton Siva. Now, when Peyton Siva played, that kid's quick. I knew you guys were going to laugh, but Siva wasn't the player that he is now, but he was step for step, he was just as quick. But John Wall, I mean, I remember that UConn game. And that was kind of the first thing that I ever wrote where Kentucky fans were like, oh, okay, this guy's half decent. Because I did say, I was like, dude, that was fun watching John Wall play. And I remember UConn had to put Stanley Robinson, a 6'9" small forward, on John Wall because Kemba and the guards that they had, Jerome Dyson, whoever it was, couldn't guard John Wall. And I mean, like I said, it's just a fun college player to watch. And I think I heard one of the Kentucky media guys, either Drew Franklin or Matt Jones, say it the other day, is they had the best team in the country that year. I mean, they just couldn't hit threes, but, John Wall was way better than everybody else in college basketball that year and was just so fun to watch, and I really enjoyed him. But, man, I mean, just like I said, just the way that whole thing changed once he got there was really incredible, even as an outsider to watch, and then to watch that year was crazy as well.
Yeah. And kind of going off the same lines of John Wall and how important he was to Kentucky, that kind of relates to one of my top 3. I can't really decide between my 3, but Jamal Mashburn. And how he transcended the Kentucky program from probation from under Eddie Sutton and then really taking the Unforgettables, a bunch of short white guys that just played really well together and turned us into some sort of powerhouse in the 90s.
Have any of you guys read that Gene Wojciechowski book, The Last Great Game?
I have read the back cover of it.
It is so good. I just as a basketball fan. So this is just me as a fan and having no interest or allegiance, but I finished that book in a weekend. It's really good. It gets into a lot of, how all those guys ended up at the school. And, for me, not being a Kentucky fan and not growing up around it like you guys, I didn't realize how bad that program was that Pitino inherited. And, I knew the story, it's 4 guys that were basically walk-ons and Jamal Mashburn. But, like the stories about, the training sessions that they had. And, Pitino even said that if he took over that job now, he couldn't get away with what he got away with, basically. And, pushing those guys, not so much Jamal Mashburn, but the other ones, Pelfrey and, Sean Woods and all them to, pushing them beyond the limits that most humans can handle from a conditioning standpoint and all that stuff. And it's a really good book. I think I still have it at my house in Connecticut. I'm gonna have to dig it up because it's a really fun book, and really kind of teaches you a lot about that history and the era, and really what really was just an unbelievable game and an unbelievable story. And I think it's something we see every March, the highlight, but to learn the background of it was really cool. I definitely recommend you guys, during the summer when you have a little more downtime, getting it, because it's an easy read. You guys, you can blow through it in a weekend if you really want to, or, read at the beach or whatever. It's an easy read. It's a good read, though.
To go back and answer a question you said a long time ago, earlier in the podcast, we all still hate Christian Laettner with a passion. Just so you know. My girlfriend, who is from down here in Florida and has lived in Florida for 10 years, and this is like her first year being a Kentucky fan because I've persuaded her, she now owns a shirt that says, "I still hate Christian Laettner," and she kind of doesn't even know why she hates Christian Laettner, but she hates Christian Laettner.
Because she's got a good boyfriend that brainwashed her, just like any good boyfriend should.
Exactly.
Well, then I should probably do it, because my fiance couldn't pick Christian Laettner out of a room filled of just us.
You better get going, man. That marriage isn't going to last very long if you don't know.
But I've always liked the Kentucky guys who are kind of sort of the talky ones. I loved Ramel Bradley. And that clip of Ramel Bradley getting in Andrew Bogut's face is still probably one of my favorite clips of anything in Kentucky basketball. But our freshman year when we were on campus, there were just those guys with Wall and Cousins and Bledsoe and Patterson. The thing is, they're all really nice guys, and we've all had campus interactions with them and everything. Patterson was just a great leader for that team and everything. But I really liked DeMarcus Cousins, but after the Mississippi State game with the whole call me situation, DeMarcus Cousins is probably one of my favorite players of UK history now. I love DeMarcus Cousins.
What was this? Was this the SEC tournament game or was this a regular season game?
The regular season, yeah. They got his cell phone number, and all these Mississippi State fans were texting him and calling him all night long, and he comes up and dunks on him right in front of their student section, looks over and puts a phone to his face and says, "Call me."
That's funny. I don't remember that for some reason. I remember the shot against Mississippi State in the SEC championship game, but I don't remember that one specifically.
No, yeah.
Good DeMarcus Cousins stories on and off the court.
Oh, I'd love to hear them, but not here. Don't want Josh's dad getting upset here. So
we, while we're talking about college basketball, we've all talked about it like 1,000 times, it seems, in every podcast about who we've picked for the national championship, and everybody's lost at least 25 times now. But Nick likes Nick. Do you still like Michigan, or are you done with Michigan?
I do. Of course,
all
I
right.
Michigan.
Nick likes Michigan, and Potter, who do you got as a national champion now?
New York State's college team.
All right, New York State's college team.
Don't say that to the UConn fan, man. I don't want to hear that. By the way, fun fact about me, and I'm completely cutting you off and totally turning this into me, but we We are recording the day after the 5-overtime Louisville Notre Dame game, which I didn't even get to see the end of, by the way. But did you know, fun fact about me, I was actually at Madison Square Garden for the 6-overtime Syracuse-UConn game in 2009.
Ooh.
I know there's like 75,000 people that claim that they were actually there, but I still have the stub and everything. I got pictures. It was nuts, man. I know. Sorry, guys. We've gone completely off the rails. I apologize. I'm like Russ Smith right now. I'm completely out of control.
He is out of control, man. He just doesn't like they were up by 2 with 20-something seconds left, and he takes it to the hole.
If Russ was like a podcaster, he'd want the last word in every segment.
If Russ Smith is out of control, then Peyton Siva's dad's arms are also busting out of every sleeve and out of control.
Peyton Siva only had 2 points last night. I saw that when he fell
Peyton
out.
Siva's dad doesn't wear sleeves.
Clearly, he's rocking the John Froman style, but I'm just saying.
He doesn't like sleeves. He hates them.
He hates sleeves. He's completely against them. But, Hobbs, who are you picking now for national championship?
I have I'm so lost on it. I was leaning Kansas, then they dropped 3 straight. Then I see Duke, and they lose Poop Tooth. I don't know. I might just pick Connecticut so Aaron likes me.
Well, I'm going to hate you that much more because they're not eligible for the tournament this year. So now you're just making me feel bad about myself and my team. But
So I'll go with Kansas, I guess. Player of the year and everything.
Well, Bill Self isn't even picking Kansas to win a championship this year. He says it's the worst Kansas team ever in the history of Kansas basketball. He said it was the worst Kansas team ever.
Even the ones in the late 1800s that would lose to the Kansas City YMCA.
Apparently.
That's what he said. That was his direct quote, was that it's the worst team since James Naismith invented the sport or something like that. Yeah. He really said that.
Quote unquote.
Wow.
Well, Bill Self's a jackass because they're taking it home. Kentucky's being their way this time.
I got Miami, dude. Shout
out to Omar, you tootin' horn pussy.
I'm just saying, they're insane right now. They're playing really good basketball. I think it's going to come down to Michigan or Miami, to be honest.
They beat North Carolina, who's way down this year. Whenever they really give Duke a good beating, then we'll talk about it. I think they already have this year once, but they have to do it again for me to be sold because they're still Miami.
Any team that loses to Florida Gulf Coast.
Right.
Even though they were a D1 team, but they lost to them.
Right.
Aaron, who do you think's going to win the national championship this year?
It's a good question, man. I think, as you guys have been talking about, I think the last couple-minute conversation is clear that there's really no team. I still think Michigan probably has the highest ceiling. When they're playing at their absolute best, they're pretty freaking good, man. And, even that Indiana game, you look at that Indiana game, and I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch it, but I thought Indiana played really well, and I thought Michigan played really bad. And Michigan still almost won that game. And
that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I said on the last podcast.
Yeah, it wasn't okay. So it wasn't totally close, but it wasn't. Glenn Robinson I think had 2 points. Glenn Robinson's not going to have 2 points at any other time in this season. Tim Hardaway had a decent game, but I don't know. I just like them. I think that they're built kind of like a national championship team. They're big inside. They have good athletes. They have shooters. They got a good point guard. But they haven't really been playing all that well the last couple weeks, and this is going to be one of those years like it was really in 2011 with UConn. Is whoever gets hot at the right time. I mean, that's kind of who I'm thinking is probably going to end up taking it. But Miami, man, it's amazed me this week, and maybe by the time that people listen to this podcast, it'll be a lot different. But dude, I don't understand how there's an argument that anyone other than Miami should be the number 1 team in the country right now. Indiana lost this week. Michigan lost this week. Duke got run out of the building by Miami. I don't know. Yeah, Florida lost. Yep, great point. And I don't know enough about Miami. I don't know enough about and I know they lost to Arizona in the preseason and all that stuff. But I mean, this isn't. People keep saying, well, Duke's got a better resume. Well, dude, this isn't about what the resume is from November. It's about who the best team is right now, and we'll figure out resumes when it's time to seed these teams for the tournament. But like, if I had a vote, and I just saw my good buddy Rob Doster from NBC Sports just put this out on Twitter, and I agree with him. Is like why should it be anyone other than Miami? And so I don't know. I think that they're playing the best right now. Shane Larkin is so good, and it was funny. I was just kind of talking to this guy whose son played AAU ball with Shane Larkin and Austin Rivers, and he was like, at the time we all thought that Shane Larkin was going to be a better point guard than Austin Rivers, and nobody really understood what, he wasn't trying to be disrespectful of Austin Rivers, but he's just like, Shane Larkin was really good, and for some reason we were the only ones, the parents in the stands were the only ones that could see it. So that dude is really good, and they're big and they're tough and they play hard, and I think they're the best team in the country right now. I don't know if that means they're going to win the national championship. This is one of those years, like I said, and I think you ask most people who cover the sport, there's 10, 12, 14 teams that they think can win it. I think that's certainly the case, to be honest with you guys.
This is just like the weirdest year of college basketball, because you got Kentucky, who's down. You've got North Carolina is down. And you've got number one going down every single weekend almost.
I was gonna say UConn's not eligible for the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they wouldn't be a contender, but they're kind of a team that everybody keeps their eye on. And I think outside of really just diehard UConn fans, I don't think they're really on anybody's radar, just because everybody knows that they can't play in the tournament, And so, the other thing too is I just don't think that there are any compelling players this year. I think that you guys have a really fun one in Nerlens Noel, and he's just such a different kind of player, but there's no guy that you feel like you have to tune in every game to see. Like last year there was Anthony Davis, and there was other guys too that were at least interesting. Jared Sullinger, at least he put up a double every night. I'm trying to think of who was in college basketball last year, but there was guys that you wanted to watch. North Carolina had guys that you wanted to watch, like you guys were saying. And this year it's just who are the guys that you feel like you got to watch every single time they play? Mason Plumlee, give me a break, man. He's good, but I'm not rearranging my schedule because I need to see that guy play the way that I felt that way about MKG or about Anthony Davis or some of the other guys that were in the sport last year. And I think most people think that Zeller's having a little bit of a down year. And other than that, it's a weird year. I feel bad for the diehards because everyone's kind of ripping on college basketball, but it's just one of those years where I just don't think that there's teams that people really want to watch. There aren't players, even in 2011 when UConn won the national championship, it wasn't a good year for college basketball, but people wanted to watch Jimmer, or people want to watch Kemba, you know what I mean? And there just aren't those guys this year in the sport, I feel like, anyways. So
I can agree with that.
Do you feel that college basketball being this way is it more of a testament to the one and done type of rule, or do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Jay Billis said this at the beginning of the year, and I thought it was a really interesting point. Is basically he's college basketball right now. It's like I'm going to butcher the analogy, but he basically said it's like an overfished pond, right? It's if the it gets refilled every year, and college basketball at this point is really now at the point where the sport is only as good as its freshmen. And, in a year like last year, well, shoot, Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, I can't believe I'm blanking on all these guys. There was a ton of them. Who else was good last year? I'm trying to remember. But, when you don't,
those are the only two that matter.
Yeah, those are the only ones
the only two that matter.
But you know what I mean, though? It's if college basketball had been relying on Jared Sullinger to be its kind of star face, I don't know if college basketball would have been better last year or not, but they had all those good freshmen, Cody Zeller's another one, whoever, to go along with all the good sophomores and juniors, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Lamb, Terrence Jones, Duran Lamb, Jared Sullinger, Perry Jones, whoever, Thomas Robinson, so when you combine the freshmen with a good group of upperclassmen, it was a lot different. And I just think it's one of those things where when you have good young, when you have good freshmen, it's going to be a fun year to watch the sport. And when you don't, it's probably not going to be. And all I can tell you is there are going to be a lot of fun freshmen next year, man. I saw I was at
us,
that
man.
Under Armour game, man. Like, I'm telling you, Aaron Gordon is more fun to watch than any player in college basketball this year. Like, right now, you put Aaron Gordon on any team, you want to watch them more than you want to watch anybody else. Wiggins, I haven't seen in person. I hear great things. Julius Randle, I think, would win National Player of the Year based on what I saw this year. I think he's better than anybody in college basketball. The Harrison twins are interesting. I don't know how it's going to work with all those guys, and shoot, who knows? At this point, who knows who's going to be coming back for Kentucky that's already on the team that I think everybody thought was going to be gone, So, but no, I mean, it's just one of those things where when you have really good freshmen, it's going to be a fun year to watch college basketball, and when you don't, it probably won't be. And that's just kind of where the sport is right now. I don't know if it's going to be like this forever. Who knows? Maybe they'll go to a 2-year rule. Maybe they'll go to a baseball-ish kind of rule. I really don't know. But right now we are kind of at that time where it's just like, the sport is only as good as its freshmen, basically. And this just happens to be a year of uncompelling, kind of relatively disappointing freshmen. Like I said, I think Nerlens Noel is really fun to watch, but Shabazz Muhammad's been a little bit disappointing, and I can't really think of any other freshmen that I'm really kind of going out of my way to watch. And it's kind of the same for the juniors and seniors as well.
I am so glad that Kentucky did not get Shabazz, because after what I saw this past, game when he didn't get the last second shot, so he didn't celebrate with his team and he walked off and pouted, I'm so glad that we did not have some, because with the group that we have now, if you were to add someone like that into it, it would, we'd be worse off than we are now.
Him and Archie, I think, would get in a fist fight.
I'm fairly certain Archie Goodwin and Shabazz Muhammad would not
Kentucky,
be friends.
Archie chose Kentucky, and I'm grateful. But, he makes it really hard to like him sometimes.
He pulls a Tyler Hobbs. He shoots a crazy...
Go die, Wilson.
I'm just saying, he shoots a crazy layup.
Die.
It's on the ground and hopes it goes in.
I'm way better at it than Archie is.
At least you could hit your free throws when you did it, man. That's the good point about it. Aaron, who's your player of the year this year?
In college basketball?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Shoot, I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now. I really couldn't. Trey Burke, maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't have a guy that jumps out to me at this particular moment. I still think, personally, it's going to sound crazy, I think the best player I've seen is Mason Plumlee. I really do. I hate to say that. But on a game-in, game-out basis, I thought he was the best, and I don't think he's going to win it. But I think it's a little too tough to say right now. What do you guys say?
Well, this is Potter's moment to shine. Potter, who is your player of the year?
Doug McDermott.
There we go.
That kid can fill it up.
All he fills up is the lane, man, because he's a big fat tub of lard.
Not that fat.
He's not fat. What are you talking about?
He's not
just big
fat.
boned, I guess.
He's
just big
not
boned.
fat.
He's not, man. He's just
Aaron's not saying he's not fat. No, it's
that stupid. It's that stupid T-shirt that he wears underneath his jersey. It makes him
look husky.
Dude, I don't know. Exactly. Well said.
Nick, who you got for player of the year?
I don't know. I guess I kind of maybe would lean with Trey Burke just because I've been picking Michigan to win. But even at that, like Aaron said, it's just so tough right now. We've had a lot more season to go. Not a whole lot, but we have a lot more season to go, and really no one's really stood out. No one's been that, I have to tune in to watch this guy tonight. Like Aaron said again, I'm not rescheduling my day to watch anyone this year, besides Kentucky.
If I had a vote, I'd probably just vote for Jimmer Fredette, even though.
All right. Hobbs, who you got?
Well, Ben McLemore is making my pick of Jeff Withey from the last podcast look pretty stupid. So I'm going to go with Marcus Smart. I really like Oklahoma State. They have a recipe to win, mainly because they have a Kentucky coach. And Marcus Smart's amazing to watch, like a point guard grabbing, I think he had 8 or 9 rebounds. It was crazy. So Marcus Smart it is. And Oklahoma State is overachieving a lot. I told Nick at his apartment this weekend, they're going to be my team, my Cinderella team that goes pretty far in the tournament. And hopefully no one else picks them, so I look like a genius.
Jared Polson for his game versus Maryland.
He might be the most beloved player on UK's. He might be more popular than Nerlens Noel.
He's like the new Cameron Mills. Like
he got a standing ovation every time he left the game. Every time I was at the game, it was crazy.
He looks like Justin Bieber, kind of.
And he plays hard, man. If our entire team played as hard as Paulson and Noel, we'd be good.
I agree. That's why he's my national player of the year. Uncle Julius.
Uncle Julius. I'll be like, until his recent emergence, like the last couple of games, I was not a fan of Julius Mays, simply because what I was expecting from him was this knockdown shooter, kind of like Duran Lamb, who anytime he shot it, you thought it was going in. And he's not quite, he's still a good shooter, but he's not a sure thing like Kyle Wiltshire or Duran. So I was kind of disappointed with that. But we needed him. God knows where we'd be without him. We'd be playing five guys the whole time.
Well, Aaron, you and me kind of talked about this towards the beginning, actually last summer, I think. How much do you think it would have affected Kentucky if they would have got Alex Oriaki to come and play?
That's a good question. You know, I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of Missouri. I think most Missouri fans probably think he's probably been a little bit disappointing. He had a huge game this past weekend against I forget who they played. Who they play? A&M maybe? I can't remember.
That sounds right, actually.
Yeah, I think it was, but you know, he had like 25 and 15, 25 and 17, I think. But you know, I just think he would have helped from the sense of a guy who's done that, and that's from what I could tell talking to UK fans, and you know, I don't watch the teams as close as you guys do, and I don't claim to. It's just, especially at the beginning of the year, there was kind of a leadership void, and Wiltshire wasn't ready to be that guy yet, and I think he's been probably better the last few games and weeks. But Alex Oriaki is a guy who, has really won at every level that he's ever played at. Won AAU national championships, won a prep school national championship. Won a college national championship, obviously. So I do think he would have helped, but it's tough for me to figure out what's going on at Missouri. Is it the players? It was a weird situation because they had this kid Michael Dixon get kicked off the team right before, the bulk of the year started. So I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on with that team. I think he would have helped. I love Oriaki. He was a great player to root for 3 years. He plays hard. Real physical presence. It's so hard to say, though. It really is, because the other thing, too, you have to remember is that a lot of the reason that he left UConn was he was really frustrated with his role last year, and part of it was because him and Andre Drummond never really were able to coincide in the paint. And Oriaki's kind of a guy who's a little bit of an undersized guy, but really plays with a center's kind of game. So how he would have been able to play with Nerlens Noel and Willie Cauley-Stein, that I don't know. But he really struggled with Andre Drummond last year. So it's tough for me to say. I think he would have been a good addition, but you never know. And I think he's doing, like I said, reasonably well at Missouri. And they actually played Ole Miss yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean Saturday. He had 22 and 18, but a guy that's been up and down. So I don't know. I don't know if it really matters at this point. Noel's been good down low. Like I said, I just think he would have been a leader that they kind of needed, and I think it could have worked out. But it's tough to say, though.
Again, Potter and Nick's time to shine. Pitchers and catchers report in 2 days. How excited are you guys?
Oh, it's going to be glorious.
Super excited.
Fantastic.
I always had to.
Hey, I like baseball too.
I'm just saying those are the guys who are going to write like crazy about baseball when baseball season rolls around.
I've been tossing around a season preview article. I'll let you know about that here in a little while.
Sounds great. All right. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to some spring training games. Aaron, you said you weren't big into baseball. Do you have like a favorite MLB team you follow or anything at all?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kentucky, like I said. It's funny, I'm a Red Sox fan, but the what's the matter?
We're Yankees fans. Every single one of us is fans.
Are you really?
You're
not Reds fans?
Reds and Yankees.
Yeah, I thought you guys were all Reds fans. I thought we were cool, man.
No.
You were cool. No, we're not cool.
Okay.
Not anymore.
I'll be at the Reds' second game of the season.
Potter is from upstate New York, and he's kind of like, since we grew up with him.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's understandable. Yeah, no,
you a Yankees fan? Because everyone else I know from Connecticut's a Yankees fan. I've got an uncle that lives in Simsbury, and that whole town's a Yankees fan.
That's funny. I grew up literally in the next town over from Simsbury, so I'm very familiar with Simsbury. A lot of nice looking girls in Simsbury. I'll tell you that much. But
I noticed I was up there.
Yeah. Well, as far as the baseball is concerned, yeah, no, I mean, so like I'm not a guy that like watches every single game or whatever. I'll turn on a few innings before bed or whatever. So I always feel guilty saying I'm a quote unquote fan because, I have a buddy whose family has had season tickets for like 40 years, and watches every game and DVRs games that he's not going to watch. So like for me to call myself a fan, I'm not really a fan. I mean, I watch when they're in the playoffs. I'll watch every game, but I only casually watch in the regular season. And part of that's when you grew up in Connecticut, it's only nice about 4 months out of the year, and they all happen to come on during baseball season. So, you're not going to sit inside and watch baseball every single night when you can go to the beach or, hang out outside, barbecue, whatever. So I like baseball. I grew up playing baseball. Ironically, that was probably the sport that I was best at as a kid. I played all throughout high school and everything, but just watching it day to day, it's just not for me, I guess. I don't know.
You share the same opinion as most of America, I feel like. A lot of them feel like the game is too long or whatever.
It's hard to commit to a 162-game season. I don't know. I buy MLB.TV so I can follow both the Yankees and the Padres all season long, though.
Well, similar to the bourbon around here where we're from, it's more of an acquired taste, baseball is.
Yeah, kind of with the thing we did, what he's talking about with the Padres. We all drafted a really National League team since we're all Yankees fans. And I got the Nationals. Nick got the Pirates, Potter got the Padres, and Wilson got
Rockies.
The Rockies. And we all just follow a different NL team since we're all Yankees fans. That's what he's talking about there. So if you want to draft the NL team that sucks really bad, feel free.
Oh my God! Well, the Nationals are fun though. I mean, I think Bryce Harper's fun, man.
Yes, I'm kind of like on the boat with you. I didn't know anything about it. And then all of a sudden, now I love Bryce Harper. Whenever Derek Jeter's dead and gone, he'll be my favorite. And then also Steven Strasburg, obviously. Yeah.
Never be Michael Trout, though.
Yeah.
Mike Trout is a schoolgirl.
Potter has the biggest man crush on Mike Trout.
Yeah. He's the best player on the team, guys. I hate to tell you that.
He may not even be the best player on his team, man.
He's better. Look at the stats, man. He's way better than Josh Hamilton and Albert Pujols.
You got one season based on this on. We'll see if he can repeat his last season outing again.
He gave us a sample size.
All right, girls. 2 days. 2 days. You're both pretty. It's okay.
Pitchers and catchers, baby.
All right. So let's see here. We're pretty much coming up to the end. We actually are going to use this podcast to kick off. We kind of did it last podcast, but it's a new segment. We're going to call it 5 Irrelevant Minutes. And it's the part of the podcast where we talk about something that has absolutely nothing to do with sports. And since Valentine's Day is coming up,
oh God,
I thought it would be great to tell stories about crazy stalker, weird girls that have entered into your life. Aaron, since you are our guest, why don't you kick us off here? Do you have any weird stalker girl stories or anything like that?
All right, I'll be really quick, and I'm not going to name any names here, but so I'm a young guy, and I've bartended at various points in my life just to make some extra side cash and all that. There was just one girl that I worked with who, within about 5 minutes of working with her, I got a weird vibe to the point that every other girl that I worked with was like, "Hey, what's up with you and XYZ?" And I was like, nothing is up with me and XYZ. And this girl used to just sit there while I was bartending and stare at me to the point that I actually had to tell the girl who did the schedule every week to please not scheduling me with this girl. I don't know what her deal was. She still I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut right now. But
stalker chicks killing 4FanSports.
There's a chance that she.
Yeah, when you have to, she's a huge fan of your guys, so I don't want to, I don't want to name any names here, but no, if I start talking, it's just gonna get bad. So, but when you have to go to your boss and say, hey, if you can not schedule me with this girl, because she terrifies me and she freaks me out, that's usually a pretty telltale sign that that person is very strange. So.
All right. Nick, why don't you tell us about a crazy...
Oh, God. Oh, hit us with it, Nick.
I don't know what Hobbs is laughing about, but I thought about this for a second. I think the story I'd like to tell is there was this one time that me and an unnamed friend of mine, who may or may not also be on this podcast.
Oh, okay. We're going to do this right now? Really?
We back in the heyday when, I don't know if our listeners remember, when MSN Messenger was the communication device of preference. We created an account for a fake female.
And made her a MySpace page, too. That was back when that was cool.
Made her a MySpace page and proceeded to hit on an unnamed Josh Wilson, also on this podcast.
We don't want to name a real person, so we'll just call
Basically, they invented catfishing, Aaron.
Yeah.
I was going to say, am I talking to Lene Kakua right now, or what?
These guys catfish
Catfishing
people
about
before
10,
they
15 years
catfish
ago.
people before.
Wow.
It was cool, yeah. They did that to me. And it was, in like a weekend, I was like, something's weird about this girl. And it was because she was a dude. And that's,
She was
Two dudes, to be exact.
she was two dudes, yeah, you're right.
That's why I was laughing, Nick, because I knew that's the story you were going to
I
tell.
knew he was going there. Potter, do you have any crazy weird girlfriend stories? I know you do.
I used to work at this electronics chain, like my freshman year at UK. And I don't want to name like an actual electronics chain, so we'll just call it like Best Buy or something like that. I met this girl that I worked with. She wasn't particularly attractive or anything, but somehow she got my number, and then she just started sending me pictures.
Oh.
And I'm not gonna say what was in the pictures, but we can use our imaginations since we're all adults here. And I would never reply to him, because that's my default strategy. Never reply if I'm not interested. And she just kept sending them for like 2 months, so eventually I just had to block her number. I ended up quitting at Best Buy over that and some other stuff, because I just didn't want to be around this girl anymore. It was just creeping me out.
There you go.
All right. I definitely thought you were going to tell Aaron I thought you were going to tell Aaron names. I thought you were going to tell Aaron the laugh story or the Yankees story for sure.
Oh, we can go into those real quick.
Go with Yankee
Next
Killer.
time, yeah. I was gonna say we can save it for next time. I've heard enough terrifying stalker stories for one night.
All right.
Mine is very brief. Mine is just an ex-fling trying to break up my current fiance's and our relationship by saying that I was still trying to rekindle our ex-relationship. So we'll just leave it at that. If you follow
Sounds romantic.
that. Yeah, it was a love triangle without love going one way.
I had an insane girl tell everyone at her high school that I didn't go to that she was dating me. And while the four of us were at high school, I was getting text messages asking me if I was dating this girl. And then this girl started showing up outside of my athletic games in the summer. And then she worked at Bass, and it was the only ice cream place that you could get in my small town, and it was the worst. So that's my crazy girl story. All right, so this has
Hopefully
been
none of
five.
them listen and pinpoint that it's them.
Well, I mean, there's only one girl who worked at Baskin Robbins, so. So this has been 5 irrelevant minutes on the 4FanSports podcast, the whole podcast that's irrelevant. But we just again wanted to thank Aaron. You've supported us throughout the whole start of the website and everything. You've given us advice, and we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And we hope maybe somewhere down the road we can do this again. And we really just enjoyed having you here. So we just wanted to say thanks for stopping by.
Of course, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Thanks a lot, man.
Very
It was a
appreciative.
good time, man. Yeah, it was rekindling a lot of memories, especially in terms of college basketball. I didn't think I'd be talking about Cliff Hawkins tonight. I'll tell you that much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
This has been the 4FanSports podcast. Again, I'm Josh Wilson, and I'm also here with Tyler Hobbs,
See you later.
Ryan Potter,
Peace be with you.
Nick Rapier.
And also with you.
Just keep looking out for 4fansports.com. Again, go check out Aaron Torres. It's aarontorres-sports.com and crystalballrun.com. Go buy his books. He supported us, so you guys need to go support him. Dad, I'm looking at you. Again, this has been the 4FanSports podcast. Keep moving forward.
Put it in reverse.